Point being, if you leave here and you say, well, his public speaking sucked, well, yeah, okay, and I'm cool with that. I'm never gonna see most of y'all again. And see, here's a good lesson already. If you admit you do something poorly, and then you do it poorly, it's like, cool, because you're like, I told you I wasn't great at it. So admit it up front, admit it. So if I pass out, you're allowed to leave. You know, I would hope Mr. Jenkins would stay and like do whatever, pour water on my face. But I will stutter, I will stammer. At some point, I will probably make some of y'all mad. I love college because you can do that. You can make people mad. My son is a freshman at Middle Tennessee State. And last night we have a Facebook group for parents. And Middle Tennessee State, there's a guy who's starting a club called the Satanic Church of MTSU. And let me tell you, I have never laughed so hard in my life. There are parents who are hitting the roof. I tolerate, anytime you use the word but, if I said, you're a good teacher, but, does it even matter what comes next? You're a perfect girlfriend, but. As soon as they say but, it negates everything you said before. So when you say, I tolerate all religions, but, or I believe in free speech, but. So, I called my son. He said, I read the post. I'm not joining. He said, unless they have like free Taco Tuesdays or something. He said, I may join because he's a college student. But a lot of people are offended. I may offend you, but that's okay because it's college. You're allowed to offend me back. Hit me with the pop, do something. Walk out. Get mad. Say, yeah, but, because I love yeah, buts. So if I said, you need to do this, if you say, yeah, but what about this? I'll be, ooh, cool. Oh, yeah, but. Okay. A couple questions to help me get over my nervousness. Anyone here from Johnson County? No one? Good Lord, it's a spark. I'm from Johnson County, so I always ask, because we got to stick together. Anyone here know where Johnson County is? Mountain City, way back now. I grew up so far back in the woods in Johnson County that people from Mountain City, which has like 4,000 people, laughed at us. My parents, we still live on a dirt road. Dead end dirt road. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But I would do it. Anyone graduate from Tennessee High School? Excellent. Because I'm going to talk about, I'll try to change the names, but I'm going to talk about some experiences there, and I don't want to make anyone mad. Okay. How many of y'all right now want to go into high school teaching? Ooh, it's a lot. How many? And I'm not being insulting by saying how many think, because I've changed my mind 3 or 4 times. How many think you want to go into elementary teaching? All right. How many, Lord help you, how many want to go into middle school? You're like, ooh, my goal is to be a middle school teacher. Yeah. I have a firm belief that middle school teachers should be paid more than elementary or high school. I deal with middle schoolers every day. And Lord, it's like herding camels. My elementary, I can play with. We'll play games, and I'll talk to them. And the high school, I can sit down. I talk to my high schoolers like I talk to y'all, But the middle school, oh, good Lord. And I'll tell you some stories. So anyway, let's get into it.
Yeah, start with what you do.
Oh,
yeah.
What I do.
And your job title and description of your day.
My undergrad is in history, but my master's is in counseling. Now, I wanted to be a history teacher, and I'm not sure why, looking back on it. I've done a little bit of everything. Like I said, I was an at-risk kid. You've heard of first-generation college students. Some of y'all are probably the first in your family to go to college. I was the first in my family to graduate high school. Grandparents, parents. My dad went to my school system one time in my 12 years at Johnson County, and that was to threaten a teacher. He still doesn't know. Somebody will say, what's John? He called me Johnny. So I'll say, what's Johnny doing now? And he said, he thinks I'm a psychologist. He said, he's one of those psychologists. So he had no clue. My mom got to 9th grade and dropped out. So anyway, I wanted to be a history teacher because I love to read, and I figured that's the easiest job or easiest major in college if you love to read is history. got to my first class of teaching, it may have been this, I don't even know, this is probably second or third. I got to my first one where they started talking about, you're gonna have to go to a high school, but it scared me so badly that I dropped out of the teaching program. So I got into counseling, which was a blessing because I'm better at it. But then the funny thing is, after about 6 years of counseling, our superintendent came to me and said, I want you to teach English, math, science, and social studies to at-risk students in the alternative school. And I said, well, Dr. Dixon, I'm not a teacher. I'm not a certified teacher. And he said, well, duh, I hired you. I know what you're certified in. This was kind of a compliment. He said, pretty much, Mr. Jenkinson was talking about being a middle school part-time teacher. We went through like 6 in 3 years. Now, he left because he got a better job at the high school. But we had like 5 quit in 3 years. And Dr. Dixon said, as soon as you leave, they just go all to hell. Said, I want you to teach them. He said, I only want you to do it for 3 or 4 years until we find somebody. Yeah, and that's been like, I don't know, 2007. I've lost track. But what I do now, or what I've done in the past is, I work with elementary students on the side. I had classes of high school students that were at risk and very, very far behind. When I say far behind, let's say in Tennessee it takes 22 credits to graduate high school. I have a senior this year who has 4 credits. Now, is it likely he's going to get 18 credits before graduation? No. But they want him to try. The school system wants him to try, and his probation officer and the judge want him to try. So, not only do I have students that hate school, I have students that basically feel, I don't have a shot. What I'm doing is sneaking on the side, and rather than trying to get him to graduate, I'm giving him pre-GED stuff. So he's going to take it. So I do that. And I also have classes of students that are not allowed on the property of the school. You can guess the reasons why, violence, drugs. Once in a while I get someone with a gang affiliation. But they're not even allowed at Tennessee High School or Advanced Middle School. I have middle school students too. Simply zero tolerance. They're like, we don't want you in a building with regular students. So they put them with me. Whole point being, I never planned for any of this, and you not either. When you get your teaching job, and we have kindergarten alternative students. I have a kindergartner who put a teacher in the hospital. When you get your teaching job, they may come to you and say, we want you to teach in an alternative school. You can say no, and they'll say, okay, good luck in your future endeavors. And they simply either won't hire you or they won't rehire you. Your first 5 years, they can let you go for any reason they want. They don't have to give you a reason. Your shoes, I don't like the shoes you wear. We're not going to renew your contract. Are any of y'all in the counseling program? Once in a while, a counselor slips in. Okay. See? And one of my counselor friends down the hallway said, you need to tell them you're a counselor, not a teacher, and you're just not going to do that. And I said, what if I told you that? And my boss said, well, then I'd say, I'll write you a nice letter of reference and good luck in the future. So I didn't tell him that. So you're going to have these students. I'm not going to talk about alternative school stuff because you're all sitting there thinking, I'm never going to do that. But every student that I have started off in a regular classroom. Okay. So, no one here is from Bristol, graduated from Tennessee High. Good. We're going to start with the 3rd grader. Any of y'all have kids of your own that you admit to? Okay. Well, just a few of us. Be careful with names, okay? If you name your kid Thunder, they're likely going to be an interesting kid. So, elementary principal calls me and says, I need you to come meet with Thunder. And I'm like, oh, cool name. I'd like to meet with the Thunder. Because part of the reason I do the job that I do is because it's not boring. I don't like boring stuff. So I said, tell me about Thunder. And she said, well, he's been here 2 weeks. This was the 6th week of school. He's been here 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks, he's thrown a chair at a teacher 3 different times. And they had some kind of weird rule at that school that throwing chairs at teachers was frowned upon. Teacher was like, imagine Aunt B on Andy Greer, if you've ever seen Aunt B. So Aunt B is getting a chair thrown at her by Thunder, whose brother, by the way, is named Storm. Yeah. Oh, here's a good one too. I also have 3 students. Well, I've had 2. I have 1 now. First names: Brandy, Tequila, and JD. What do you think JD stands for? Yeah. So I have a Brandy, a Tequila, and a JD, or have had. I only have JD at the moment. So anyway, I said, well, what do his records show? I mean, has he had issues like this at other schools? Because he's a new student. And she said, I don't know. We don't have the records. Right away, you know, that's a question mark. You are going to get students that you will say, well, how did you do in, or you'll look and say, how did they do in math last year? And you'll have no way of finding out. Because their records, sometimes their records don't follow. It's a bureaucracy. Bureaucracy stuff. So you're going to have some students like that. I have a high school student, Scott, you'll find this interesting, that spent 3 months working on the computer English 3 program before he remembered, and the counselor remembered, that he had passed English 3 the year before. The kid literally did not know he had passed junior English, so they had him working on it for 3 months before he got sent to me. We started looking at his records, and I'm like, dude, why are you doing that? I didn't know I passed. So you can't ask them, how have you done in that? So anyway, I said, right away, that's a problem. We need to get the records, see where this kid comes from. So principal said, I know that, but we've called and can't get his records. And I'm thinking, okay, he must be from Nashville, Memphis, you know, Chicago, somewhere far away. So I said, well, why can't you, is he from somewhere far away where there's an issue? And she's like, he's from Blumpville. And I just laughed because I'm thinking, it's not that far from Bristol to Blumpville. And she said, we've called, but they just wanted, you know, oh, they're in the mail, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, I'll get the records. Couple of teaching tips. Here's one. To be a successful teacher, first of all, about 70% of it is acting. It's literally acting. Sometimes you act like you're happy. I have some kids you act like you like them. I hope you act like you like them all. I hope you like most of them. But the other thing is, to be a successful teacher, sometimes, and some of y'all are going to have difficulty with this, it helps to be an ass sometimes. Excuse my language, but it does. It's not all sweetness and light. So I said, I'll get the records. And that, you know, that kind of made her, she's like, well, what are you going to do? So I started calling Blumpville. I'd call when I got to school, I'd call at lunch, and I'd call in the afternoon. I called the same woman 3 times a day. Did that for a week. After 15 phone calls, she said, for God's sakes, just quit calling. They're on my desk. I finally got them all. I'm going to mail them. And I thought, that's silly to mail them from Blumpville to Bristol. I said, how about I just come get them? And she said, if you'll quit calling me, you can do whatever you want. So I zoomed down to Blumpville. Stopped at Pal's on the way there and back, because I'm me. Got paid for it, because they're paying me to do this. Got the records. So when we got the records, and I asked Dr. Newman, I said, has he been tested? Like they test, Sheldon on Big Bang Theory. He'll say, I was tested. I wanted to know if he'd been tested for some kind of special education diagnosis. I was thinking ODD. Does anyone know what ODD stands for? I know it's a word, odd, but it's not just odd. I was tested for ODD. ODD stands for Oppositional Defiant Disorder. ODD is where you offer me $20, say I'll give you $20 if you'll sit in that chair, and I'll say, nope, I'd rather pick my own chair. On the other hand, if you said, pick any chair you want, someone might say, nope, it's your job to assign me a chair. They tell me it's oppositional to fine. We've all known people like that. Some of y'all are probably like that, but there's an actual diagnosis if you take it too far, which we do sometimes. So I want to know if you've been tested. So we got the records. Now, y'all are smart. I'm sure you're smarter than I was when I was in college. So I want y'all to figure out if this is important or not. Kids in the 3rd grade. It's his 7th elementary school. Important? Not important.
Important.
Important. Would you have trouble making friends if you had been, would you even try to make friends at some point? You're like, I'm here for 3 months. Hell, I ain't gonna make friends. You know, I'm not gonna form relationships. My education is gonna be lacking. So I said, okay, that's important. So it was good to know. Second thing, had he been tested? And the answer was yes. He had been tested. And the test did not show ODD. The test showed that his IQ was 140. Now, what's an average IQ, roughly? Take a guess if you don't know. There's no wrong answers in here. I've been wronger than all of y'all. No, I wish. 100. 100. His IQ was 140, which is like 3 times mine. I've never actually done the math, but I'm assuming it's 3 times mine. Gifted. Gifted. You okay?
Yeah.
I thought for a minute you were going to try to throw it. I didn't really not. He's gifted. So we talked to the teacher. We talked to Aunt B, who was very nice. Did nothing wrong. And she said, I noticed I'm trying to get him to read like Junie B. Jones, if you ever read Junie B. Jones. And she said, he acts like he's bored. And we're trying to do, we're working on multiplication tables. And he acts like, and she said, he'll sit there, and he'll sit like this, and go, and he starts by throwing his pencil up in the air. And she said, I'll tell him not to. And it starts with, he's taking stuff and just doing that. And she said it escalates and all of a sudden there's a chair being thrown. Now, would you be bored if you're college students and very smart? Would you be bored if they started you reading Junie B. Jones? Here. He was reading on the 11th grade level. And he wanted to learn geometry. Because he liked angles. He's one of those weird kids. Yeah. Yeah, there was stuff wrong with it, because he wanted to learn geometry. So I said, we got to make some changes. And then I said, we need to get parent involved. Now, I'm going to tell you, some of the stuff I'm going to tell you, you're just going to laugh off. Some of you will disagree with. This part is actually good stuff. Okay? When you call a parent, it is best 99.9% of the time that you ask for their advice. Man, you said you're a parent, right? You said you're a parent. If I called you, and here's my call. Hello, ma'am. Can I tell you what your kid did today? Are you thinking, oh, he must have made 100 on the test? Or are you thinking, he tried to burn down the bathroom? Or she tried to burn down the bathroom? Most of the time when parents like this get phone calls, it's never good. Hardly any, and I recommend that too, by the way. I call parents and say, let me tell you what your kid did today. He took a math test, made a 70, but he got 7 of the hardest questions right. You need to put that on your refrigerator. But we hardly ever do that. So I always call and say, can I ask your advice on Johnny or Thunder or Scott? Now let me ask you this. What happens when you ask someone for advice? What does the other person feel? Who in here is good at anything? I mean, hopefully some of y'all are. Heck, what are you good at? What are you good at? Fashion?
No.
School? No?
Oh, dancing.
What?
Dancing.
Dancing. So if I come to you and say, I need your advice on dancing, what do you feel?
Important.
You feel important. Do you feel like you know more than me on dancing? If I'm asking for help?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, it makes you feel good. It makes, I'm very non-sporty. But if I said, you know, I need your advice, I need you to explain the rules of soccer to me. And if you could do, you know, you would be like, yeah, I could do that. So you feel good. So I want the parents. And here's the way I do it. I need your advice on Johnny. You know Johnny much better than I do. Duh, you're his parent. We're having a situation come up, and I'd like to know your thoughts on it. Now, does that make you good when I say, I want to know how you feel or how you think? Yeah. See, it gets parents, basically it gets parents on your side. That's different than me saying, let me tell you what your kid did today. They're destroying the school, and let me tell you what's going to happen. Right away, you're mad, you know. So, I said, let's call Mom. So, I called Mom. Here's what I said. Ma'am, my name is John Greer. I'm from the school system, and I'm calling about Thunder. And this is what I heard. As soon as I said, I'm calling about Thunder, what I heard was, I knew it. I told him. I told him y'all were going to be calling. It's a new school. You're not going to give him a chance because we're from Bluntville, which made no sense whatsoever. We're Bristol. It's not a metropolis. Because we're from Bluntville and because I'm gay and living with a woman. Now, I didn't know she was gay. I don't know if he knows. Never talked about it. But it did not start off the way I planned. So I calmed her down, talked to her, tried to talk to her, had nothing to do with her sex. We don't routinely ask about who's living with who, nor do we care. I tried to explain it was about Thunder throwing chairs, but it was good information because we did put a note, do not call Mom unless Thunder is bleeding. Don't call her. If it's not going to do any good, why would you do it? I mean, that's stupid. So we had a note. Don't call Mom unless he's bleeding or being sent home for hurting somebody. Talk to the teacher. You're going to run into this. Well, you'll be the person doing it. The teacher said, listen, he's in the 3rd grade. I'm required to teach. Guess what I'm required to teach? The 3rd grade curriculum. Okay. Does it make sense? Kind of. Is it stupid and not workable? Yes. Here's a kid who's reading on a junior high school level who they want to read Junie B. Jones. He wants to learn geometry. They're working on their 3s and 4s. So, teaching rules can be bent. Try not to break them. Unless once you teach like 30 years, you can break them. But they can be bent. So here's what we did. I said, I want him to read a chapter of Junie B. Jones. And then I want him to read any book in the school he chooses. I want him to take a math test. Once he gets the first 10 questions right, which he would do in like 2 minutes, then let him go back to the computer and get on a geometry program. Now, is that fair? Is she still teaching 3rd grade curriculum? Yeah, so A and B's happy. He's happier, okay? So he's not being bored. If you're bored, you tend to throw pencils and eventually chairs. And then the last thing, this is the part that's funny, and I've been very lucky. The principal said, John, I want you to teach him how to make friends. Which is crazy as a living. Because anyone that knows, I told my wife and she just horse laughed. I do not make friends. I don't have a lot of friends. I have some. Some of the ones I have, not Scott, I don't care about. They're just friends because we grew up together or whatever. I'm the world's worst at making. If you come to me and said, how does someone make friends? I'll say, I don't know, pay them. You know, say, come out with me and I'll buy you hot wings or something. I'm very non-social. So I didn't know how to teach them how to make friends. But I have, and I think every teacher should have this, but that's just me. I have an emergency backpack that I used to carry with me. I'd go from school to school doing different stuff. My backpack's in my car right now. If you look at my backpack, you're going to see comic books, checkers and chess, a couple of games like tic-tac-toe. You can steal one from a Cracker Barrel. They expect it. I'm not sure they advocate it, but they expect it. You know, the little game where you do with, yeah. Like I said, just toys of different kinds. Nerf football. You can do Nerf football inside. You can always hit the kid in the head, pretend it was an accident. I'm teasing. please, most of the time. So anyway, I'm supposed to be teaching him how to make friends, and he's looking through my backpack, and he says, "What's this?" And I said, "That's a chess set." He said, "Ooh, I want to learn how to play chess." He's smarter than me, so I figured I can do that. Plus, I honestly remember thinking, I'm going to get paid to play chess. And despite what some people say, most teachers are paid well. I'm not over or underpaid. Okay? Most teachers are paid well. We like to complain. It's kind of like students about lunch. They'll complain, "Oh, lunch sucks," as they're on their second helping of school lunch. Okay? And it beats working at Walmart, I will tell you that. So, I was teaching them how to play chess. We're in the Avoca cafeteria, and we're in the corner playing chess, and another young man walks up. And what do you, he looks at us, we're playing chess. What do you think he might have said? Anybody? I'm not going to make fun of you if you're wrong. Just, what do you think? What would be normal if a kid looked up, walked over, and we're playing chess?
What's that?
What's that? I said, "It's chess. It's a brain game, kind of like checkers." And then he said, what do you think he might have said? "I want to play." Or actually, he said, "Will you teach me?" And I said, "No, I don't know you. I'm not going to teach you chess." Kids like that. So they kind of like it. They figure, well, you're talking to me like an adult, so it's okay. I said, "No, I don't know you. I'm not going to teach you how to play chess. I don't have enough time." And Thunder looked up and said, "Mr. John, could I teach him how to play chess?" And I said, "Thunder, this is documented. It's very hard to play chess and throw chairs at the same time." And he said, "Well, what if I control my temper?" Which is kind of a good thing, right? So I said, "Yeah, that's great." So we worked out a deal. I gave him a chess set. I have 30 or 40 in my garage. Every time I go to a yard sale, I pick up cards and chess sets to give away. Teacher put him in charge of the chess set. At recess, lunch, free time, anytime they had free. Now, once again, he feels important because people are asking him how to play chess. It's all psychology. So he starts teaching people how to play chess. And in doing so, oddly enough, he made friends. Principal came to me about 2 months later and said, "I don't know what you did, but he's a completely different kid." And I said, "I can't tell you what I did. It's top secret counseling stuff." Because I didn't want to say, I taught him how to play chess. Because then it'd make me look like I didn't know what I was doing. So, that continued for probably 2-3 more months. And then what do you think happened? No, he moved. He moved. Teacher called me, said he's moving. I went down to see him. I said, "Tell me something that I could get you, not a car, not a cat." And he said, "I'd like the first 2 Harry Potter books. I've never had a chance to read them. My allergies are bothering me too." I went to Mr. K's. They have teacher discounts, by the way. Mr. K's does if you're a teacher, or probably even if you said you're going to be a teacher. They gave me a discount on the first 2 Harry Potter. I gave them to him. He hugged me. I hugged him. He cried. My allergies acted up, so I left. Never heard from him again. Don't know where he is. He's already out of high school. And I told the other class this. Kids are not tulips or daffodils. I'm not a planter. Is anybody here a gardener type person? They are oak trees. If you plant a daffodil, you will see a daffodil. If you plant a bulb, you will probably see a daffodil in 6 months? I don't know. Kids are acorns, and you're going to plant those acorns, and you will probably be dead or gone before you see a big oak tree. I hope he's a big oak tree. I think he is. But it really doesn't even matter because I feel fairly good about helping him while he was here. But you're going to have kids that you're going to never see again, and you're like, "Man, did I make a difference? Did I not make a difference?" Some you'll see right away. Some will hug you and say, "You've changed my life." Some will cuss you and say, "You've ruined my life." I would take neither one with a complete grain, I'd take both with a grain of salt. But you are planting acorns, and you're going to have these kids who You may never see them again, but they are gonna be better off because of you. But if you expect instantaneous results, if you plant an acorn and you go check it every single day and look at the ground, you're gonna get discouraged for a while. Okay? So there's a multitude of little tiny lessons in there about calling parents, about playing chess, find something you like or you're good at, something kids like, and just have it in your classroom. All kinds of stuff. I've lost my train of thought.
Why don't you move on to Michael?
Michael. That was an elementary kid. Michael was probably one of my all-time favorite students. I'm going to use this right here. I met Michael in the 7th grade. He and 7 other students at the same time had been busted at Vance Middle School for drug possession. I don't know if y'all, you think, oh, that 7th graders don't do that kind of stuff, but, yeah, they do. 5th graders do that kind of stuff. We had a pregnant 6th grader last year. Tragic. It's in probably my first or second year, and I'm not real smart now, so I was even dumber then. So I got this kid named Michael. He was the ringleader of the bunch. And he's sitting at a table. I noticed for 2 or 3 days he worked on an art project. And I thought, he's a leader. I got to I want a relationship with him. You want to make relationships with the leaders. The A students, in every class, in a class of 25, you're going to have 18 or 19 students that you could say, go jump off the building. They're like, yes, ma'am, I'm on my way. But you make friends with the other 6 first. So anyway, Michael's sitting there. You're Michael. And he's sitting there, and he's working on his art project. His friends are around him. And I walk over. I'm not real smart. And I say, Michael, I like your picture. To me, that was normal. He did this. I don't give a damn what you like. And you ripped his picture in half. Now, I'm a trained counselor. So I responded with, ooh, and walked away. I didn't know what to say. What do you say to that? I didn't know what to say. He might be one of the smartest kids I've ever dealt with. We had a wonderful conversation years later, not weeks later, years later. Because I mentioned that. And he said, I'm still mad at you about that picture. And I said, why are you mad at me? He said, you made me rip up my picture. And I said, Michael, I did. We have this thing, I talk to kids. I said, who's in charge of your hands? If you hit me, who's in charge of your hands? It was a decision you made. It may have been a split-second decision. Who's in charge of your mouth? Yeah, you can't. If you say, well, they made me mad, you're giving them power over you. And you're still in charge of your mouth. So I said, no, you ripped your picture up. He said, no, you made me rip up my picture. And I said, tell me more. And he said, I'm sitting there with my posse. And I called timeout right away. I said, timeout, this is Bristol. It's not Chicago. We don't have a posse. We're not the Bloods and the Crips. He said, I'm sitting there with my posse. And he said, you come walking over like this. It was really, and he got up and he said, you come walking over like this, which is not the way I walk, I hope. He said, you did this, and you go, ooh, Michael, I like your picture. He said, what the hell was I supposed to do? He said, in front of all my friends, he said, you're going to leave, and I'm going to be like, oh, Michael, he likes your picture. He said, I had to rip up my picture to show, but I didn't care. And he said, I like that picture. You owe me a Coke. We had this thing where we would bet Cokes back and forth on stuff, and I brought him a Coke. But, I mean, that was a wonderful lesson in kids' psychology. They really don't care. I could say, oh, you guys need to listen to this. This is great music. Some of you are like, okay, but a lot of you are like, he's a 54-year-old fat man. I don't care what he likes. And you know that a 13-year-old boy who's a juvenile delinquent, even if he liked it, he would have to do that. And so I thought, man, that's one of the best psychology lessons I've ever had. We would make bets and stuff. And this was 7th grade, and I had him for like 4 years. He would go to the high school, and I remember one time, one of the English teachers said, Michael, give me a verb. And without even thinking, he says, bite my ass. Which technically, bite was the, he could not make it, so they'd send him back. And we got to be pretty close. We got to be really close. But one time, we were doing something, and I had on a shirt, and we were playing ball or something, and he happened to see one of my tattoos. I keep them hidden most of the time. Not so much now, because it's more socially acceptable. And he said, "You have tats?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "I have one." I'm like, bull crap. He said, "No, really." And he pulled up his shirt, one of the ugliest tattoos I've ever seen. And I said, "When did you get a tattoo?" And he said, "5th grade." And I said, "You're lying." I mean, that's the way, but I'd say, "You're lying." He'd say, "Bet." So I'm thinking, how do you prove you got a tattoo in the 5th grade? You don't get a certificate of authenticity. So I thought, this is a bet. I said, "Yeah." I said, "Prove to me that you got a tattoo in the 5th grade." So the next day he brings in 2 class pictures from the 5th grade. One is when they're all sitting there, totally fake, like this right here. The whole class, there's 25 of them like this. They look like zombies. And the other one, they're doing this behind each other. The other's a play picture. He's on the far end, like this right here. You see the ugliest tattoo in the world. He said, "I want my Coke." And I said, "How did you get a tattoo in the 5th grade?" And he named a tattoo parlor in Bristol. He said, "You ever heard of it?" And I said, "Yeah, it's hideous." He said, $10 and a bag of weed. And I thought, this is a neat kid. I mean, he was so smart. We really screwed. School systems, we got to do better. I needed to do better, but I was very young. I took him home one day. We were talking about homes. A shutter, I'm horrible at physical stuff. A shutter had fallen off my house. I live in a little suburb. It's like 200 homes, and my wife loves it. I tolerate it. And I was complaining about shutter. I said, "My shutter fell off my house next to the window." And he said, "Screw you." And I said, "What was that for?" He said, "You're complaining." He said, "You live in a house with like nice windows and stuff, and you're complaining about a shutter falling off. Screw you." So a couple weeks later, he didn't have a ride, and I took him home. He lived in the worst trailer park in Bristol. It's called Anderson Street Trailer Park. It's been condemned now. They've removed all the trailers. They've bulldozed over it. Every window in his house was covered with plywood. I said, "What's the deal with that?" He said, "My brother and I would fight, or my mom's boyfriend would fight." He said, "All the windows got broken out, and we couldn't buy new windows, so they just you walked inside, it was as dark as night." Y'all don't know Linda Bearfield. She taught this class for a long time. The first time I talked to them about it, I said, "If I lived in that house, I would smoke weed daily." She said, "John, you can't say that to college students." And I said, "It's an exaggeration. I don't smoke it at all. But could you understand depression if you lived in a house with no windows?" His brother had 2 outfits. I had his little brother too. You're going to have generational, like we'll say the Greers. You may have 5 Greers over the space of 15 years. You're like, "Oh man, I got another Greer." His brother had 2 outfits. And Miss Bearfield tried to give him another. She said, "I got some clothes." And we worked out a way to give kids clothes without them feeling like their dignity had been assaulted. And she said, "Do you want this outfit?" And he said, "What for?" He said, "I have 2. He said, "I wear one Monday, the next one Tuesday. Monday's Wednesday. I got a Monday, Wednesday, Friday set, Tuesday, Thursday set." He said, "Anything more gets stolen from the trailer park." He said, "If we wash it, we put it on the banister of the front porch, little trailer front porch to dry." He said, "If you don't sit out there with it, you come out and it's gone." It's just tragic. Michael was so smart. I took him home, and I had an old Jeep, but it had a Bose stereo system in it. Bose, in case you don't know, pretty nice speakers. Speakers didn't work. He said, "What's the deal with your?" I said, "Speakers don't work." He said, "Can I have them?" "Yeah, I don't care. Take them." 2 days later, he came in. They worked great. I said, "Can I have them?" He said, "I'll sell them back to you for $75. I said, "No, that's okay. That's okay." Smart kid. Do we have time for the VCR story?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a hoarder. I grew up really, really poor. I'm talking really, really poor. And so, like I said, when I go to yard sales or when people give me stuff, if you go to my house right now, It says property of Bristol, Tennessee City Schools. The library called me and said, we got a big screen TV, it's like that right there, that doesn't work. Do you want it? I'm like, yeah. I don't know why I said yeah. Yeah, I'll take it. Took it home, plugged it in. It's worked for 8 years. You know, I am not, they'll say, you want this? I'm like, yeah, I may need it for something. So I had a VCR. Didn't work. As Mr. Jenkins said, we taught like late at night. So it's 6 o'clock and I'm trying to teach an English class and Michael's in the corner. He's like, this sucks. He said, can I have that VCR? I'm just trying to get through the day. So I'm like, yeah, take the VCR. A week later, he comes in, cord, VCR cord, couple of parts on the end. He said, let me show you something. Plugs it in, goes, mee. I said, what is that? He said, tattoo gun. He said, let me give you a tattoo. And there are limits to relationship building. I said, no, there's no way in the world you're giving me a tattoo. But we looked at it, it worked. Now, let me tell you something. This is before the Google or the Bing. This is before the internet. If I gave you a VCR and said you have a week without doing any research to make a tattoo gun, how many of you think you could do it? In fact, if you gave me a VCR and said, I'm going to shoot you if you don't make a tattoo, I'd say, just shoot me now. This kid made it a working, and now you can Google it, and you can see, I mean, if you Google, make your own tattoo gun, they're all over the place. Smart kid. Was horrible at math, English, loved to work with his hands. So of course, when he got out of the alternative school, the school system said, you're behind in math and English, so we're going to give you double classes. They took him out of every vocational class and said, you got 2 Englishes, 2 maths, 2 social studies. Recipe for disaster. The last I heard from him, he's in the prison in Johnson. Johnson County has a prison called Northeast State Correctional Facility, or Northeast Correctional Facility. Don't get it confused with Northeast. Yeah. But the last time I talked to his brother, he said Michael was up there and was going to be there. He said he wasn't sure how long, but it's 10 to 12. So, smart kid. We screwed him over. You know, even now, they're telling every high school student has to have physics. We have high school students who can't pass physics unless you dumb it down, which what's the point of that? I mean, but every high school student has to have either physics or chemistry. And I've got high school students, I've got a couple right now that still don't know their times tables. It's you're going to get depressed at times. I asked a student the other day, we were working on a math thing. I said, what's 3 times 6? He said, give me a second. Pulled out like an iPhone 14 or whatever, and he's doing 3 times 6 on the calculator. I just wanted to cry. You know. So, there's both good and bad. But man, I miss talking to him. He was one of the most honest kids, probably a psychology professor in prison by now or something, because he said, I smoke weed, and I smoke it a lot. And I have no intention of stopping. And the judge said, I'm going to lock you up when he was like 17. I said, you're going to lock me up, but I'm still going to smoke weed. Which is true.
So,
What now?
if you don't mind, why don't we go into some love and logic? So talking about that philosophy and.
I told y'all I'm a guidance counselor by degree. I always assumed teachers had all these courses on like how to manage students. In fact, I used to daydream that there was a book. Like if this happens, you go to this part of the book. It says, you know, if a student does this, you do this. I never got that book. But my strength is in building relationships and managing students. And I'll tell you this, and this is the part where some of y'all can get mad if you want. If you're going to be a math teacher, you can learn everything there is to know with math on the computer. We don't need teachers to teach people math and science. But the computer cannot manage students or motivate students or inspire students or get them to want to finish. If you're an awesome math teacher, and you may not know how to manage students or discipline or build relationships, and that's okay. But if you don't know how and you have no interest in learning, then you're screwed. You're not gonna be teaching long. You're not gonna be teaching long. I'm not good at any particular subject, and I teach every subject. The other day we counted up, and the students that I have, they're taking 22 different subjects. They're taking 22 different subjects. Now, do you think I'm an expert in 22 subjects? Lord, no. I'm good at pool. We have a pool table, and I'm good at pool. But you got to know how to manage students. Love and logic is a philosophy. It's not a system. I don't like systems. I don't like school systems that much. I hate the political system. Most of the time, a system is like a set of rules where the system says, if A happens, you do B. Okay? Medical systems are okay because, you want, if you have a hacking cough, you do this. But most systems, but in school, it's never, they do A, you do B. It's like, they do A.2. And you're like, I'll tell you a story. In Love and Logic, there's a book called A Salamander is Not a Fish. It's based on a school in Texas, a middle school in Texas, where they tried to write down every rule they could think of. So if you broke this rule, it was spelled out. Okay? A kid one day came to school with a dead goldfish. And he liked this girl, so he popped. He thought it'd be romantic to hit her in the face with a dead goldfish. I asked my wife about that. I said, what would you do? And she said, I'd knock you into next week. So it doesn't work on every woman, I'm saying. But they actually wrote in the rules. I love when schools do stuff like this. They actually wrote in the rules, you cannot hit people with dead fish. Which was a waste of a sentence. Now, the kid's dad was a lawyer. And if you have a choice between having kids with lawyer dads or kids with biker dads, you take the bikers every time. The next week, the kid brought in a dead salamander. Pop! Can't do that. Oh, Dad came in. A salamander is not a fish. The rule says you cannot hit people or bring dead fish. Doesn't say anything about salamanders. So I know a guy named Jim Fay. He actually wrote a book about it. And if you look for it, it says a salamander is not a fish. That's a system. You do this, they do this. A philosophy is we're going to keep it in this general area. I really like this, but I like it. You may look at it and say it's way too permissive, it's way too whatever. Mr. Jenkinson, I hope you still have a lot of stuff on it.
I do.
You still have the thumb drive?
I do.
Okay. He has a thumb drive that I've illegally downloaded from my stuff. But I bought it, but it's probably got 100 hours of Love and Logic stuff on it. Working with teenagers, working with adopted kids, working with toddlers. I've used this on people. I started with my son when he was 3, and I've used it on my dad, and he's in his 80s. But it is a philosophy. And here's the philosophy. Most of it, I think, is, I talked to one teacher, she said, well, good Lord, I've been doing that for years, and I've never read a single book. I said, because most of it's common sense. Okay, tell me if this makes sense or not. It is very hard to work with students if you threaten them or lecture them. And I'm not talking lecture like, let me tell you this educational theory. I'm talking, how many times have I told you you need to bring your book to class? I don't know if the teacher's ever told you that, or you ever heard anything akin to that. I love the how many times phrase. How many times? And then they're giving you the finger. How many times have I told you? And let me tell you, when they say how many times, that they really don't want an answer. They want to demean you or belittle you. And when they're giving you the finger, I always say, this finger is worse than this finger. If I'm doing this, you know better. Right away, you're either defensive, you're like, oh, I wish you'd go away. Or if you're Michael, you're like, pop, I'm going to get up and fight. Okay? No point in it. Keep your finger to yourself. Okay? Most of us know that. Isn't that common sense? but yet you'll still see someone do it. There are people who are Bill Clinton. People have mixed feelings on Bill Clinton. But if you go back and ever look at any of his old speeches, he would do this. Rather than say, I promise you, he would do this. This is not offensive at all. This is me just doing this. But if I'm like, I told you right away, you're either like, whoa, or I'm going to break it and stick it. What? This? Yeah. Trump, Trump does this a lot of times. No, but really, he does. Yeah, I try. No, we're not going to talk about him. I'll get in trouble. I lean so far left that sometimes I touch the floor on the side. But they do this because they know this finger is not good. So anyway, the first step in working with students is showing empathy. If I said, listen, don't lecture or yell at your students, you'd be like, duh. We know that, but you'd be amazed at how many times we lecture or yell at students. So the first step is what's called empathy. Mr. Jenkinson has all that is on the stuff, and I've got some handouts up here if you really want one. But here's an example of empathy. I'm going to use two different people. I'm going to use you two, okay? Pat, okay? All right. This is me my first year. This is some of my friends' first year. Tell me, you say, I'm not going to do that English paper. And just say it like you're ticked off.
I'm not going to do that English paper.
You have to do that. I didn't ask you to do the English paper. It's an assignment. You're required to know. You're required to do the English paper. If you don't do it, you're going to fail. You're going to end up living in a van down by the river if you don't do it. Now, are you sitting there thinking, I've changed my mind. I need to do the English paper. No. And if you were a snarky student, if you were a little mean, would you start getting snarkier and snarkier?
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. If I yell at her and she's obstinate, or even just normal, what is she probably going to do back? Yell. Are you going to yell louder?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I'm the teacher. You can't yell louder at me. What am I going to do back?
Yeah.
I want to yell louder. Anger begets anger. This is East Tennessee, so I make a lot of jokes. So I told a class one time, I said it's in, I think it was 5th Thessalonians. Anger begets anger. And there's people who emailed me later on and said, I looked it up. There's no such book in the Bible. I'm like, yeah, I was being sarcastic. But 5th Thessalonians says anger begets anger. And there's an old rule. Car salesmen know this rule. I had a car salesman tell me this one time. He said, it's really hard to piss people off and sell them a car at the same time. It's really hard for me to tick you off and then say, now, open your book and start work. And you're like, screw you, I'm not going to do that. Anger begets anger. Now, you tell me in a snarky tone of voice, you may have to act. I know you're not snarky by nature. Tell me you're not going to do that English paper.
I'm not going to do that English paper.
Oh, man, that's sad. What are you going to do?
Watch Netflix.
Watch Netflix. And will that help you reach your long-term goals, you think? Or is there anything you could do? Okay. Now, notice, even though we're play acting, we've gone from you saying, I got to get louder, to we're actually going to have a discussion. I will say, oh, that's sad, or that's tough. And here's the funny thing. Very little of this is natural. You got to practice. Sometimes you'll see me driving down the road in my little Honda Fit, and I'm looking in the mirror, as I should be driving. I'm going, man, that's tough. Man, that's tough. So when a kindergarten student comes to me and says, Mr. Greer, I broke all my crayons. I can't color. Man, that's tough. What are you going to do? And when a middle school student says, Mr. Greer, I left my book at home. I can't use my book and I'm going to fail. I can go, man, that's tough. And when my dad says, I've had another heart attack. They're going to put me in the hospital, but I really don't want to lose. I'm too old to change my ways and lose weight and quit eating like a horse. I can say, Dad, man, that's tough. what are you going to do? Because here's another part of that with the what are you going to do. It is very hard to be mad and think at the same time. If I say, let me tell you what to do, can you tune me out? In fact, you would tune me out. Statements. Teachers love to tell people what to do. It's in our blood. And they love to make statements. I can stand up here and say, y'all are pretty smart. Everybody in this room knows that 7 times 7 is 54. And there'll be people in the back somewhere going, yeah, I know that. And then there's a few people going, it's not 54, it's 49. So if you make statements, there's no thinking required. But if I said, what is 7 times 7? Hopefully at least 90% of the class, now you're thinking. So if I say, what are you going to do? How are you going to handle that? Then I'm trying to engage, to be technical, I'm trying to engage your frontal lobe and not your brainstem. I'm not in the anger mode. It's very hard to answer questions. You can discipline by asking questions. I saw a perfect example the other day. Andrew Cross, I don't know if you remember him or not. There's a student, and I love this student. Her name is Skyline, her first name. We're in an after-school program together. Oddly enough, I'm teaching high school, so I don't play chess. So we're in there, and I look over, and there's girls sitting like this right here. Now, he has a thing about feet not on tables, desks, or chairs. I don't care about it. That's his thing. So Skyline is sitting like this right here. Now, what would have happened if he'd have gone over and said, dang it, Skyline, how many times, or you know better, blah, blah, blah. How do you think she might have reacted? Defensive or offensive, either way. I noted this. I mean, this is a 10-second thing, but I thought, that's pretty neat. He was over here, and he looked at her, and he smiled. See, you want to freak a student out when they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing? Smile at them. Now, I had one woman, she said, can we think what we want? And I'm like, yeah. I'm going to ignore that, but I don't know how to turn it off. So, well, I don't. I either ignore them or answer them. So, so whoever it is, I hope they hear that. That's principal in the school. Don't leave a message. So, Lord, you're killing me. So he smiled. Oh, smile at him and this woman, she said, can we think what we want? And she said, I'm thinking, oh man, if you were my kid, and you were doing that and I had you at home, I would just whoop you into that. And she smiled. I can't even tell that story without smiling. It's one of those Clint Eastwoods. Go ahead, make my day. So I said, smile at him. It freaks them out. Do you think a lot of school kids are fussed at every day by their parents? Are a lot of the ones that cause trouble at school? Do you think they get yelled at a lot? So if you do the same thing, they're like, another adult, you smile at them. And they'll be like, what are you thinking? So he smiled at Skylyn. He's over here. He smiles at Skylyn. And he slowly starts walking towards you. You don't want to walk fast, because fast either scares you or kicks people off. This is what I used to do. You're in class. Oh, we got that up the message. You're in class and you're doing your nails while I'm teaching fractions. And dang it, fractions are important. They're really not, but I'm paid to say that. This is me, my first year. You can't do that in my class. I would go home, my hand would be swollen, and I'd be like, man, my hand hurts all the time. And my wife's like, you're so dumb. But that gets and finally one day I did that, and this high school guy jumped up and he bumped chest with me, which apparently is a sign of aggression. He did this, and I literally called timeout. I was like, whoa, timeout. I said, I'm going to go get a drink of water, and I'm going to cool off. See, here's another thing. This is an important thing. Never tell a tough, mad kid what to do. Tell them what you will do. I did not say, you need to calm down. I said, I'm going to go get a drink of water and calm down. When I come back, we'll try to talk about it. I ended up apologizing, which is another thing. I've actually heard teachers say, you can never apologize to a student. One of the UH teachers told me one time, she said, you never say please or thank you or apologize to students. But anyway, so don't approach him with the anger thing. So with Skylene, get back to Skylene. He's slowly walking over. And he goes, Skylene. And she looks at him. This is so cool. And he said, what am I getting ready to ask you? Now, he asked her a question, right? She said, you're going to ask me to put my feet down. And she put her feet down, went, and he said, thanks, and walked away. He disciplined by asking questions. I have a paper over here where it has like 25 great statements to discipline kids by asking questions. Okay. Here's a good one. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good a decision is that right now? Now, if you're snarky and you say it's a 10, I might say, I guess we'll find out, won't we? Okay. Here's a good one. Can I be honest with you? I've had kids say, no. I'm like, okay, just wanted to know. Here's my all-time favorite. I think every teacher should have this tattooed on the palm of their hand. It'll probably hurt like heck, but you can suffer through it. Tattoo this on your hand. This gentleman here is reading Sports Illustrated while the rest of the class is working. I don't want to make a big deal out of it. If I make a big deal out of it, you're going to respond. And then we're going to get in an argument. I'm going to end up sending you to the office. And then we've got to do an ungodly amount of paperwork to send someone to the office. And I don't even know if you'll go. What if you say, I'm going? So I walk over. Am I smiling or frowning? I'm smiling. I want to freak you out. I'm not even focusing on you because we're talking about fractions. And when you divide fractions, you take the arse end of the fraction and you flip it. It's called the reciprocal. And so when you divide fractions, you flip the reciprocal and then you multiply. So I'm almost coming over here by accident. There's this thing called proximity control. I don't know or care if you go to any kind of church, but I used to sit in the front row and I would fall asleep. I'm sorry, I admit that. The Lord knows. And the preacher would come out and start walking around as he preached. And the closer he got to me, the more I'd wake up. And it's the same thing. If you sit in the front or back of a classroom, never get up, you're not going to be able to manage your students. You need to walk around. The closer I get to this gentleman, most of the time, they're going to quit doing what they're doing. Not all the time. So I come up to it. I'm smiling. I'm happy. I'm not making a big deal out of it. And I lean down. I whisper. Never embarrass. That's a very good rule. Never embarrass a student. Anyone here like to be embarrassed? No. When my wife, well, we're still, especially when my wife and I were together, we're still together. When we had dated for about a year, my idea of fancy dining is Golden Corral. When we had dated, I know, I'm not fancy at all. When we had dated for about a year, it was my birthday, and I said, oh, let's go to Golden Corral. She hates, my wife's a very nice lady, cultured, and like most likely to succeed and all this crap, and it drives her crazy. Drives her friends crazy. They call us Beauty and the Beast. Anyway, she said, I'm going to get them to sing happy birthday to you. I said, don't do it. They came over. They get through happy birthday. I got up and went and sat in the car. Okay? If you embarrass some people, they will do whatever it takes. They may get offensive. If it hadn't been her, there'd have been some embarrassed singers, because I'd have been like, get the hell away from me. If I want you to sing, I'll ask you to sing. So anyway, never embarrass. And let me tell you this too. You can have perfectly good reasons and you can embarrass a student. Be very careful. The elementary school I went to had 60 students total. We had a kindergarten first, combined kindergarten first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, and the principal was also the sixth grade teacher, so he had 15 of us sixth graders. I went to a middle school in Johnson County that was brand new. It had like 400 middle schoolers. I did not know a soul. Oh my gosh. I don't even know what that's. How do you turn this off? This is my son gave this to me. All right. My son he got a new one, and This is the first, let me show you the school phone. This is a phone I'm used to at the school. It's like a Star Trek, but I know how to work this. Okay, thank you. So anyway, the teacher takes the role. I'm in the 7th grade. Hard to believe looking at me now, but I'm a big nerd in the 7th grade. Now it's like, whoa, he's suave, but 7th grade nerd. So the teacher's calling the roll. She says, Johnny Greer. I go, here. Because I'm going through puberty, my voice is cracking. So imagine, and I literally did not know another person in that class. And she said, I know you, and I know your dad. You were in the newspaper this summer. You read 200 books this summer and got an award from the library. And I remember, I looked around, and every girl in the room was like, that's the boy I want to be with. He read 200 books. Do you think they were thinking that? Good Lord, no. And all the football players that were in there were like, I wish I was more like you. No. The first time we had gym class, they're like, you're a little dumbass that likes to read, blah, blah, blah. Now, was she trying to embarrass me? No, she thought it was cool. You will do this, just be aware, even in the right way. If I could say, look at her. She's taking notes. She's listening to what I'm saying. She takes notes. She nods her head. Y'all be more like that. Is everybody in here going, oh, wow, we need to be more like her? No. You're going, that hoe, when I get her on, and you're not. No, but I'm saying, see, you can embarrass somebody in a good way. Don't do it. So, don't embarrass them. So, ordinarily, I whisper. I cannot whisper with you because no one will hear it. Here's what you say. Write this down at some point. You lean down. Are you smiling or frowning? I'm smiling. I'm smiling. And I whisper. And I say, just because I like you. And what's the only part you've heard so far? I like you. Just because I like you, can I let you get away with that? Just because I like you, can I let you get away with that? Now, he's a little snarky, okay? And so he's thinking, how can I answer that? And so what's one phrase that a snarky person may say when I say, just because I like you, can I let you get away with that?
Well, if you really want it.
Yeah. They say, yeah. Did you say yeah? Okay. Here we go. Just because I like you, can I let you get away with that? Oh, that never worked for me when I was in school either. That never worked for me when I'd say something like that. Or I'd say, nice try. I like that try. A for effort. And see, I'm also not doing this. I'm also, not saying, just because I like you, can I let you get away with that? I'm not intimidating you. I'm not even waiting for your answer. So when you say, yeah, I'll say, nice try. I appreciate the effort. And I'm walking away. But I'm still paying attention to what you're doing eventually. But I have never said that to a student where the student hasn't either laughed or smiled. Because what's the first thing they hear? He like, okay. And here's another thing to say, if you want to have some real fun. If you say yeah or something, can you save that for her class? She likes it when students do that. Name another teacher. We had a thing going in school where I said, can you save that for Miss Brown's class? She likes it when you do that. And I told Miss Brown, and so when the student did it, she said, can you save that for Coach Witcher's class? He likes it. The last teacher in the line, and you got to get your perks when you can. The last teacher in the line said, can you save that for the school bus? And we just had fun with it. Okay? There's stuff you can say. I think no, I'm not. But that's my favorite one. Just because I like you, should I let you get away with it?
I statements?
Huh?
I statements? Enforceable statements?
Yeah. So we've gone through empathy. We're going to go through, I said, I hope you're smarter than yesterday's class. I asked yesterday's class this, and none of them had an answer. I think it was they were just hating me. I don't think it was anything to do with intelligence. Give me a quick, easy definition of an enforceable statement. I'll even give you the first part. Yeah, when you see another class, you look down on them a little bit. You say, an enforceable statement is a statement that you can, oh my gosh, yeah, you're a star. No one in the other class were like, that you can say out loud. It's a statement you can enforce. We don't think about these. When you go to your classrooms, hopefully there's rules on the wall, and I want you to look for something, okay? Because most rules are unenforceable. Keep your hands to yourself. Can you enforce that? You're a teacher, okay? We're in your class. Tell me to keep my hands to myself. What you gonna do? You gonna grab my hand, twist it? No, what you gonna do? See? Exactly. Here's one I really like. Well, I'll tell you this one. There's actually a journal called the Elementary School Journal. I hope none of you ever read it. It's horrid. It's very old, or in tenor, if not in age. But they had a list of unenforceable rules. Can anyone guess what the number one rule you can't enforce is? Anyone? Oh, 2 for 2. Raise your hand. Okay? Tell me to raise my hand before I speak. Speaking, already speaking. What you gonna do? Now, there's a way around that, and I'll teach it to you if y'all want. But here's the deal. Unenforceable statements generally start with you or imply you. Enforceable starts with I. I pay attention. I answer questions for students who raise their hands. I grade papers I can read. I grade papers that are turned in on time. I let people sit next to each other when they keep their hands to themselves. Any of y'all going to go into coaching or back, stuff like gym teachers? I mean, it's chaotic in the gym anyway. I let people play basketball when they play by the rules. I used to have a basketball coach. I loved it to death. I told you I'm a little ODD. We'd play basketball, and I'd pick up the ball like a football. I'd run down to the other end of the court, shoot. And he'd be like, Johnny, I still hate that name. Johnny, you have to play by the rules. Could he make me play by the rules? No. The statement is, I let you play when you play by the rules. Okay? And here's the way you do it, because you got to think, kids are smarter than German Shepherds. That's one of my philosophies. And we teach German Shepherds rules and expect them to, we say sit, we expect them to sit. We don't give kids credit. I'm going to ask you two a math question. Okay? I'm going to ask you a math question. I want you to blurt out the answer. I want you to raise your hand. I'm going to give you time. Okay? It's a tough question, but take your time. All right, kids. What is 1 plus 1? Yes, sweetie, you got your hand up. What is 1 plus 1? 2. Awesome. That is fantastic. 1 plus 1 is indeed 2. Thank you. Now, have I said, and you know why I didn't call on you, or have I even said that? Later on, if I think you truly don't get it, I may come by and say, sweetie, remember, I'm not embarrassing you, sweetie, do you know why I didn't pay attention to you? What's your answer? Because you didn't raise your, and I pay attention to kids who raise their hand. Thanks. Okay? You make I statements. I give full credit to papers done. I've hung up on one of the joys of teaching is when you get to hang up on a parent. And I've hung up on a couple of parents, generally not for a long time. At one point I was averaging about 1 a year. But one of my things, I would say, I talk to parents when they talk in this tone of voice. The last one but that keeps me calm too. The last one I hung up on, she was cussing and yelling at me. And I said, ma'am, I talk to parents when they talk in this tone of voice. And she went like this. I'll never forget. It's funny. She went, okay. But let me tell you something, you son of a, and by the time she got son of a out, I hung up the phone. She came in to see me. And she said, I'm the one you hung up on. And I said, I'm the one that hung up on you. And she said, why did you do that? And I said, ma'am, I would never ever call you yelling and cussing. But I don't talk to people who yell and cuss me. She said, can we sit down and have a I said, I would love to. I said, you're welcome anytime when we talk. I statements. I do this. This works at home. For my kids, my daughter, when she was like 16, 17, she'd have a curfew, she'd miss it, I'd fuss. I said, I let students who call, if she called and said, I'm running behind, can I have an extra half hour? I said, sure. I let students who call stay out later. My dad actually taught me this. He was a former drill sergeant in the Army, and I was like 17 or 18, and he'd say, John, be home by midnight. Now, can he enforce that? Yeah, I mean, how could he make? He didn't even know where I was. I'd be with a bunch of juvenile delinquent friends in Johnson County, and we'd build a big bonfire up in the woods, and we would get chocolate milk and have Bible study. Sometimes till 6 or 7 in the morning. And you think he's going to come find us? No. But he'd say, damn it, I told you to be home by midnight. And he could fuss. His philosophy was, I could make you wish you were, which is a good teaching philosophy too. But he couldn't make me come home by midnight. Finally, he said, and I don't know how he figured or what he said, but he realized I didn't have the key to the house. So he said, I lock the doors at midnight. You decide, sleep in the bed, sleep on the porch. Now, do you think that night I came home at midnight? No, I'm a juvenile delinquent. I had to, see, here's the thing. If you give a kid a statement like that, they're going to test you. They're going to test you. I came home at 20 after 12. There was a pillow on the porch swing. I live in a real safe, it was back, we were the only house for like miles, and there were guns everywhere. I mean, it wasn't like I was in danger. So, I had to decide, sleep on the porch or wake my dad up and suffer Dad's wrath. There was many a night when I was 17, 18, 19 when I slept on the porch. But he felt better. He was making his statement. I went in the Army. I was in charge of like multi-million-dollar equipment. You know, I was in Germany. We were right on the border of East Germany. There's always a chance of war. I got home from the Army. I was 24 years old. Dad, I'm glad you're back. I missed you, blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm going out to see my friends. I locked the doors at midnight. I'm like, oh my God, Dad, I'm 24 years old. I've been in charge of, he's like, it's my house, my rules. You gotta love it. So you say what you will do, okay? I turn students in when they curse me. Can I enforce that? I turn students in the office. Yeah. Okay, what if I said, you're not allowed to cuss me? No, can't enforce that. And when you tell students that, we had a 7th grade student, you won't have this kid. He started the alternate school this 3 months ago or whatever. Very first day he come in, he said, it's hotter than hell in here. And he's about this tall, about that skinny, he's autistic. And my aide, and I said, please, let's talk. So she turned to him and said, you can't talk that way in this school, mister. He said, let me tell you something. And he proceeded to cuss us for at least 20 minutes. He finally just got tired. You know, I'm sitting there like this right here, and I'm like, let me know when you're done. So when you say something like, you have, we're oppositional. You have to do this. Does that not tick you off? You have to do this. Think about, now we've gone from enforceable statements, we're going into choices. Think about how much you hate a professor or a teacher who has a seating chart, who like, you, now not chart where you sit, but like assigned seats. Oh my gosh. Or, and I know Mr. Jenkins, and see, college is different because y'all are choosing to be here. No one's making you be here. I went to a conference and a woman wrote my name down and said, here. And I said, what's this? She said, it's your name tag. I said, I don't want a name tag. I've never met this woman before in my life. She said, you have to wear a name tag. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe she had the gall to say that. I said, I don't have to wear a name tag. She said, what if people want to talk to you? What are they going to call you? I said, they can call me sir. They can call me fat man. They can call me, hey you. I said, they can call me prick or ass for all I care. I said, but I'm not wearing a name tag. And my principal, Jim Butcher, was with us. And he's like, John, please. He said, I know you're you. He said, please just wear a name tag. And I did what any kid would do. I took the name tag and I put it right on the seat of my ass. And I went in there and I was fulfilling the letter of the law. So when you say you have to be very aware, when you say you have to do this, there are certain kids that will die before they do it. They will spike themselves. You know, you heard cut off your nose, spot your face? They will do that. I've got kids, if I said you have to sit down, they will stand for an hour and a half. And I've seen it happen. I'm probably one of them. So you have choices. Here's the rule with choices. You give two choices. You don't give, I tell kids, I say, I'm not a menu. I'm not KFC. You don't have it your way or Burger King. But you give two choices. They have about 10 to 15 seconds to decide. If they don't decide, who does? Me. And teachers are like, well, that's hard to do. It is so easy in a classroom. All right, guys, we're having a history test coming up. Would you rather have the test on Friday, so you have the weekend to do math and party? Or would you rather have the test on Monday, so you have the weekend to study? I'm going to take about 20 seconds, take the roll, y'all decide. That's a great choice. Okay? Because here's the rule about choices. It is not the quality of the choice. It's the fact that you have a choice. I literally saw this. Kindergarten teacher, friend of mine, said, watch this. This is funny. She gave lots of choices to her students, kindergarten students. She said, all right, guys. And she did the little, where all the students do that. I hate stuff like that, but they all went, now they're paying attention. So she said, I'm giving you all a sheet of paper. We're going to draw. We're going to draw a picture of us and our mommies and daddies or whoever you live with. And I want you to decide. I want you to decide. Are you going to draw on this side of the paper or this side of the paper? And I thought, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. But then I look, all these 5-year-olds are going. They're deciding. They've got to make a choice. Teachers can give choices all the time. Okay, if you're a loose, classroom that's built on this, all right, guys, we have to do, before lunch, we have to do math and English. Would you rather do math first or English first? That's a choice. Here's me at the alternative school. Would you like to do a couple of short lessons with short breaks, or do one big long lesson with one big long break? I'm going to get a drink of water. You guys decide. Okay. Have to have a test next week in economics. Would you rather do short answers, multiple choice? But see, you only give choices that you're okay with. With my daughter and son, it would be, well, this is my wife's rule, it wasn't mine, but would you rather have broccoli or spinach? You would never ever say, would you rather have broccoli or ice cream? Because any kid worth their salt, they better choose ice cream. Any of y'all familiar with Woodridge in any capacity? Woodridge does Love and Logic. They teach parents that for the kids who are in there. And I had a parent one time, this is psychology, you'll pick up on it. She called me, one of my parents. She said, you know that Love and Logic crap you teach? So right away, I'm thinking, she's probably not a big fan. I'm smart, I picked up on that. Her son had been in Woodridge for a week and a half. And I said, yeah. And she said, I'm giving Lucas choices and it ain't working. I said, well, tell me what you're doing. She said, every morning I go in the bedroom and say, Lucas, would you rather go to school or not go to school? And I'm like, oh, good heavens to Betsy. The choice would be, and I didn't tell her this, but the choice, this was with Hannah, Mom. Would you rather go to school dressed the way you want? One time we put clothes in a bag, and she went into Gray Elementary carrying her clothes. She wore her pajamas, carry clothes in a bag, or go that way. I only took one time. But you give choices. If you give a choice you're not happy with, students will instinctively choose. If you said, would you rather have a test or no test? Good Lord. Okay? I taught at UH for a while. UH is an interesting school because it's all the way up here. Wonderful school. But I was once again, I was young. We had two students, I'm not going to name their names because one of them's a big doctor now in Johnson City. And I'm like terrified. I'm like, holy crap, I ever had a heart attack. Don't take me, because I still see him as 18. But they wouldn't do their senior English. They had senioritis. I don't know if you've heard of that or not, but they had senioritis. They were not doing their English. They were making D's. Their parents were freaking out. School was freaking out. We're UH. We can't have students with D's. So I got with their parents and said, I got a wonderful plan. I said, if they don't turn in their English this week, here's the plan. Parents said, yeah, do that. So I went to the two students. I said, here's the deal. You've not been doing your English. But I've got an answer for you, a solution. If you don't turn in your English this week, your parents have agreed to bring you at 7 o'clock Saturday morning here to the school. I'm going to be here. And from 7 o'clock to noon, we're going to work on senior English. They didn't even communicate in any form or fashion, but simultaneously they turned to each other, put up their hands, and went, "Yeah, Saturday morning with Mr. Greer." And I'm like, "Oh God, no, I did not want you to choose that. I don't want to be," but I had to be. If you give them a choice that you don't want them to take, they will take that choice. It's weird. They're like the smartest people in the world. Okay? So you give choices you're happy with. And, okay, would you rather have broccoli or spinach? I'd rather have ice cream. Oh, sweetie, I know. Then would you rather have broccoli or spinach? And then if they don't choose, you choose, okay, broccoli it is. It'll be ready in 10 minutes. We'll call you. You can give all kinds of, see, choices are like bank deposits. I'm going to give you bunches of deposits. Okay, would you rather do this or this, this or this? And about once a week, I say, "All right, guys, I'm sorry. You've heard of this crappy thing called TCAPS. This week, I can't give many choices. It says we have to do English Monday morning. We have to do math. Now, next week, we're going back to choices." So you give lots and lots of little choices. Because every once in a while, you have to make a big withdrawal. And I'll even say, you use it against them. I use it against them daily. Do I give lots of choices? Do I let you make most of the decisions here at school? Well, I can't let you choose on this one. This one, we have to do it this way. Another thing I like to tell or ask students all the time is, am I being reasonable? And if they have to, if I can get them to where they go, "Yeah, you're being," I'll say, "All right, I appreciate it," and just walk away. So you got choices. We've already gone over empathy. We've gone over enforceable statements.
Delayed consequences.
Delayed consequences. I love delayed consequences because I say stupid stuff. I told a kid one time, he did something at school, and I said, "I'm going to have to suspend you." And he said, "For how long?" And I said, "You're suspended till you come back and you apologize to the class." 2 weeks later, my principal, this was at the alternative school, principal said, "We need him back in school." He was going to die before he would be back. Principal said, "You can't say that." All right, so you can't. When I make quick decisions, most of my decisions are bad. This is delayed consequences, okay? Young lady over here, I'm teaching, and she's back to doing her nails again, okay? Doing her nails, drinking Pal's tea. So now, I'm going to come over and talk to her. Am I smiling or frowning? I'm smiling. Am I rushing over, or am I, if you don't know the meaning, y'all are in college, I'm meandering. I'm strolling. I'm meandering over to her. Now, here's what I say. This is a delayed consequence. A delayed consequence is when you have to do something but you don't know what to do, or it could get you in trouble, or they could be so mad at you that they shank you. So this is what you do with a really, really mad kid. You're thinking, he's going to go off on me, hit me. I meander over. And am I going to tell the whole class, or am I going to whisper? I'm going to tell y'all so y'all know. Here's what I say. I'm going to have to do something about that. But not right now. I'm teaching. I'll let you know. And you've got to say this. Try not to worry. Try not to worry. Now, you're thinking that's not going to work on tough kids. That wouldn't work on me. But y'all are part of the Clemmer College of Education. And the Dean's Secretary calls you this afternoon and says, there was a little issue in Mr. Jenkinson's class. Not a big deal, but we need to talk to you Monday morning. The Dean wants to meet with you. Go home, have a good weekend, and we'll talk Monday morning. How many people worry? Anybody worry a lot? Oh my gosh. Mr. Butcher used to call me. He would call me, and I would always, he'd say, "John, this is Mr. Butcher, this is Jim Butcher." And I would automatically be thinking, what did I do? Is it on camera? Can I deny it? I mean, I would freak out. Finally, it got to the point where he said, he would call me and he'd say, "John, this is Jim Butcher. You're not in trouble." And I'd automatically, because I worried so much. Okay? This works. Try it. I don't care how old you're. Just for fun, try it on a spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other. Call them up and say, I've been giving this a lot of thought, and I think we need to sit down and have a talk. Let's try to meet tomorrow if we can. Not a big deal, try not to worry. And see if they freak out. See if they freak out. I would be over there like, no, we got to talk now. It works on all kids. But it also gives you time to think. It gives you time to think and not say stupid stuff. So I would say, try not to worry. And then I would go to my teacher friends or my principal, and I'd say, can I get in trouble if I say this or do this? Or how would you handle this? Okay? And you can delay it. Part of the fun is delaying it for a long time. Okay? We had some girls at Advanced Middle School. They wrote some of the filthiest letters I've ever read to boys. I mean, they were explicit in the extreme. Some of the stuff I'm not sure was physically possible. I think they were just writing stuff they'd heard. But they made Penthouse, look like the Bible. It's that bad. And we intercepted the letters. And I laughed for weeks. Because these three girls, they were like, what are you going to do, Mr. Greer? And I'm like, guys, I don't know. And I do this. I'd be like, I'm still in shock. I read your letter 3 times, and I'm still not sure something that's possible. And the girls go, oh, my God, I can't believe it. And so, I'm saying, I don't know what we're going to do. I said, I got to think on it. I said, I'm trying to decide, do I need to let your parents read it? I know your grandpa would be, do I need to let your grandpa read it? I'm going to think about it over the weekend, and I'll let you know Monday morning. Try not, just, you know what? Here's a good thing to say, too. I used to say this to Hannah all the time, and Eli. It'll probably be okay. What's the key word in that sentence? It'll probably be okay. Try not to worry. So they come in Monday and say, Mr. Greer, what did you decide? I'll be like, guys, I got to tell you. This weekend, it was free hot wings at Zaxby's or wherever. Alabama played Tennessee. Tennessee got beat so bad I binged on chocolate milk, hot wings, and Netflix. I didn't even give it a thought. Let me think on it this week. But I told you not to worry about it. It may turn out to be nothing. All week long. Oh my gosh, every day. Have you decided? Have you decided? We played that off for 2 weeks. Now that was worth more punishment than if I'd have said, you're suspended, or this is going to happen, or that's going to happen. They punished themselves for 2 weeks by worrying, which was what I wanted, quite frankly. So go to somebody like say, we need to talk, or if you have your own kid, I would tell, Hannah would say, every time you say try not to worry, it just makes me worry more. And I'd say, I know, that's why I do it. Yeah, good times. So that's a delayed consequence. But it's also if you don't know what, I didn't know what to do about girls writing filthy, 13-year-olds writing this to boys. I mean, there's no handbook that says if they write this, do this. So I had to figure out what to do. But I made sure they worried about it while we figured out what to do. It's a great story. Y'all want to hear what we did? I put them in an envelope. And I said, these go in your permanent record. Because at that age, they still believe there's a permanent record. I said, these go in your permanent record. And if there's any more trouble this year, I'm going to have to make copies and give them to your parents and grandparents. And I know y'all are big in Awana and Young Life. We'll probably bring in the preacher and try to get you some healing, stuff like that. I said, and one of them said, but what if we don't get in more trouble? I'm like, if you don't get in more trouble, the last day of school, we're going to take these envelopes, we're going to go out to the practice football field, and we're going to set them on fire, and we're going to watch them burn. And they're like, okay. And then for the rest of the year, I'd see them in the hallway, I'd walk by them, and I'd just do this. They would walk by like this right here. Or sometimes I'd turn to one, I still can't believe that. And I'd just walk away. The last day of school, they came up to me and said, can we burn it? I said, yeah. We went out, and I got a cigarette lighter I confiscated from another delinquent, put them on the 50-yard line, and they burned them. And this one girl, she's like, oh my God. She said, it's like a weight's been taken off my shoulders. And I wanted to say, sweetie, it was a stupid mistake. It wasn't that big a deal. But I didn't. Now, I said that a couple years later, But at the time, I wanted to think it's a big deal. That's why you say, it's not that big a deal. It'll probably be okay. What if you call your boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever and say, I need to talk to you? It'll probably be fine. You know, they're freaking out. You're freaking out. You know, so how can I get off on that? What part is that? Anyway, that's delayed consequences and stuff like that. Okay.
So we've got some time for some questions or other thoughts or things that you guys want to talk about, ask about
You could
experiences.
say, yeah, but, or that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Anything like that. You can say that. I'm open to that. I get told I'm stupid, you know. I got high school students, they'll say, Mr. Greer, who was the 16th president? And I'll be like, man, I don't know. That's why, you know, that's why God made the Google. Look it up. Kid will say, you're the dumbest teacher I've ever had. I'm like, well, dude, you know, that's what I'm here for. Yes, I'm sorry.
What is the concept of making positive experiences?
That's that's making those, giving them those choices and telling them, you know, here's what I do. Oh, I didn't say that. This is something y'all need to do. Well, I may have touched on it. Take your toughest kids the first of the year, call their parents. Now the parents are thinking, oh my God, this is first day of school, first week of school. You say, listen, I'm so glad to have Susie in my class. She's the most interesting. I told one woman one time, I said, your daughter makes me laugh every day. Now she would come in and she'd say, I'm in the Bloods, and she'd be doing this, and I'd be laughing, and no, you're not, you're an idiot. I didn't tell the parent that. I said, she makes me laugh every day. Every day is a new experience with this girl. I call her Devil Girl. She wouldn't answer it. She told the other teacher, she said, I only answer the Devil Girl now. Mr. John calls me that. But so I'm you know, that's when you're saying stuff like, just because I like it. When you do that often enough, and when you make that phone call, I had to call Devil Girl's mom to fuss, and I could hear, her real name's Michaela. I could hear her in the background fussing, and her mom was saying, you know that man likes you. He brags on you all the time. He ain't going to lie and say you're doing. I could have said, you know, she killed a girl in class, and the mom would have believed me. Because her experiences were such that she knew I was positive about it. So that's one of those bank deposit things where you have to make a withdrawal. Okay? And you talk to kids. I tell mine, see, here's a good thing about being a juvenile delinquent. Y'all need to either work on your delinquency stuff or get multiple tattoos or something. Because I will tell my kids, they'll get in trouble, and I'll say, there's nothing you've done that I probably haven't done worse. And then if I want them to laugh, I'll say, so suck it up, and you too could grow up and be like me. And then they're like, oh my God, I don't want that. But you give them that, you know, you walk by. Here's what I believe every student needs. Eye contact, smiles, and touch. And I don't mean you walk up to a student and say, may I touch you? That's just weird. That's like that Jack Black movie where he says, I've touched your children. I walk by students. Now, if a student says don't, duh, you don't. But I walk by students and I'll be like, good job. I like what you're doing there. I'm glad you're here. I had a kid, in fact, depending on once the school you're in and your philosophy, this is what happened yesterday at the alternative school. 7 high school boys walk in at the same time. I'm like, guys, I'm so glad to see you. I said, who needs a hug? First boy says, it's funny. First boy says, I don't need a hug, Mr. Greer, but I think you do. So I'm going to give you one to make you feel better. Now, what's he really saying? Yeah, because hardly any of them have two parents, or all they hear is yelling. Next guy comes up and he said, I'll do a side hug. So we do the side hug. And so then they make a game of it. The last kid is like, I'll do a frontal hug, but no body contact other than 3 pats on the back. So we're standing there like this right here, making sure none of our areas touch, doing that. But you walk by, you smile, and you say stuff not related to school, okay? I would never say, you're a good student, because that means if you're not a good student, I'll probably quit liking you. Okay, so you say stuff like, I'm glad you're here. You were out yesterday, I was worried, I'm glad you're back. If you walk by and you touch them like on the shoulders, generally, I mean, like I said, you don't, hey, good you're here. You know, you're like, good to see you. And if a student, I had one girl one time, when I said, I'm glad you're here, and she said, please don't touch me. It turned out she'd been molested. I said, I'm sorry, I apologize, never do it again, but I'm glad you're here. And so, eye contact, smiles. You'd be amazed at how many teachers don't smile at their students. I know teachers the first day of school, they start counting down. 179 days to go. I'm like, good Lord. I'll tell them stories. I failed classes in high school. I'll say the first time I failed Algebra 1, boy, that was a traumatic experience. I've even brought in my transcript. They're like, you really did. And I'm like, yeah, I did. I graduated undergrad with a sterling 2.5. So I say, you too can grow up and be just like me. And I'll tell the girls, I said, you can be just like me, but shorter. And they'll laugh. But you do that. So I never want a kid to think I either like them or don't like them based on whether they know their times tables. Because some of the worst students I've had, we had a kid one time, he got sent to me, he was in a class standing up. And the teacher said, it's time to sit down. And he was taking his time about it. Now that's passive aggressive, take your time. She's like, dang it, Chris, I've told you twice to sit down. It escalated to the point where they took him out in handcuffs. The SRO, the school resource officer, had to come in, handcuff him, put him against the wall, and then take him out. They sent him to me for a year. This is one of the best. This is a kid that I'd be like, Dad, I forgot my wallet in my car. And I'd say, Chris, would you mind going out here's my car keys, will you go get my wallet? He'd be like, yeah, I'll be back in a second, Mr. Greer. That same teacher later on had a flat tire, and he came up on her while she had a flat tire. And he said, I'll change it. He said, you sit over here under his tree and let me change your tire. He didn't know jack squat about school. I've also had honor students that I wouldn't trust with a dead puppy. They're horrible people. So it's not about the student, it's about the person. And like I said, there's very little they've done that I've not done worse, or thought of doing worse, or gotten away with worse. Okay? And you think that they're acorns, and you want them to grow into a tree. Now, some are a little crooked, but they're still little trees. I'm sorry, I got preached to there again. I'm a Baptist, didn't I'm a Baptist with Buddhist tattoos. It's an interesting combination. Swinging parties. All right, what else?
What are the questions?
I've probably gone on too long.
No.
Bueller?
Yeah. Thoughts, questions?
Comments?
Snide remarks?
You still have my email address?
I do. I have your email address, and it's
Okay.
it's actually on the page everybody's got.
Yeah.
Got the email address right there.
Feel free to email me if you want to ask a question in private. Ask Mr. Jenkinson if you want to hear some of these, all my stuff's, like I said, it's on computer, a disc, so you make.
Yep.
Some teachers will make CDs, and they get credit at school for listening to stuff on the way.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Greer.
Don't do that. I refuse to clap for other people just because I think, well, they expect it, so I ain't gonna do it. Even if it's really good, then I'll go to them later on. I was all right.
All right. Well, so thank you very much, sir, and thanks so much for your attention, everybody. And we will we'll meet again on Monday, right? So Monday's our next class meeting. If you'll do me a favor, just pass all of your documents this direction. I'll go and grab those. Reach out to me when you are ready to schedule your lesson plan meeting. And yes.
Do you want this for this?
Yes, go ahead and pass those to me too, and I'll make sure that they get to her. You'll just make sure your section number's on the top of it.
I don't know. I started Saturday night.
Okay. You have this.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. I will see you later.
When you guys start looking for jobs, Bristol's full of old teachers who are getting ready to retire. They pay good money.
We're in section 1. PBS section number 001.
Sorry you didn't get the test. I'm gonna pull it.
I don't think it goes down the same time.
Like these. It's like the Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Appreciate it.
time for next class? I'm sorry.
About 10 minutes.
I'm gonna go drink water.
Absolutely.
Yeah, time is good.
Yeah.
Long drink on my nerves.
Thank you.
Was that the one that you, was that on? Oh, okay. I hope you won't do the same one again or not.
Yeah.
Tell me if I need to, I didn't.
No,
I need to cut something out to get rid of the bullying stuff.
No, that's good. I mean, I think the examples and the depth of examples are good. And
Okay.
Bullying stuff are good.
Well, if you need me to change something between now and then, let me know.
Sorry, I take notes a different way, so I'm putting them on.
You're gonna get this back, by the way.
I know.